It's spelled traitor, not traitor, by Jack of all trades. Chapter 10. Masks. Izuku teleported to a sterile chrome hallway. Cameras trained themselves on him as soon as he appeared, and the sounds of mustering guards echoed through the complex. The poor sods that had been stationed at this particular hallway found themselves going limp with fading consciousness from psychic backlash as their quirks were forcibly ripped from their bodies at a distance. Opaque walls of force appearing blocking the ends of the hallway. All this happened in the span of seconds, and without Izuku ever taking his eyes off of All for One's restrained form. In addition to a straitjacket, Sensei was strapped in 5 different places to a motor-driven wheelchair. Below the bald and scarred brow was a gas mask and rebreather, no doubt pumping a combination of air and quirk suppressant into All for One's lungs. Intravenous tubes connected to several different concoctions threaded themselves under the clothing to deliver the nutrients All for One needed to live, as no one was risking the consequences of letting his mouth free from the gas. The mask of the dutiful protege Izuku fell over the boy when confronted by his sensei as easily as the mannerisms of the twisted lover Izuku did with Himiko. He stood straight, heels together, and hands clasped over his tailbone. Izuku's chin lifted slightly as he surveyed the glass wall that separated himself from Sensei. Made from the same glass that Izuku had used for the quirk testing room at his shop. What a coincidence.
Izuku, it is good to see you again after you've left me alone here for so long.
Sensei's voice was gravelly, a natural consequence of when his throat was caved in by his penultimate battle with All Might. The gas mask and intervening wall muffled the voice further, rendering it soft and tinny.
Sensei, I was establishing my power base. I could not risk being revealed before I was ready.
Izuku stepped forward to a panel outlined in the glass, a door in the loosest sense of the word.
I am to assume, then, that you have accomplished your preparations.
The door slid into a slot in the ground when pressure was put upon it. Izuku stepped over into the cell, and the door rose to shut him in once he crossed the threshold.
Almost. Shigaraki has grown careless. In our absence, the heroes have a lead towards the Villains' Alliance refuge and are no doubt preparing for an assault.
Absence, Izuku?
Sensei's tone conveyed the raised brow that his mutilated face could not.
Yes, I have had to distance myself from the Villains' Alliance to progress, as subtlety is paramount. You may recall that subtlety is not Shigaraki's strong suit.
An oversight, still.
I had expected better from him. I stand corrected and will move to rectify the situation.
Very good. As nice as the update is, you have an ulterior motive for seeking my counsel.
Izuku stood before Sensei eye to eye with his seated former master.
There is. It is guaranteed that there will be an engagement with the heroes, as they are in a heightened sense of awareness. So relocation is not an option. When they find the hideout, the inheritor of One for All will most certainly be there. I will need to be at peak capacity if I am to stand a chance against them.
Sensei reclined as much as he could, restrained as he was.
You wish for the final dregs of my stockpiled quirks.
I do, Sensei.
Izuku bowed slightly. A rattling sigh left Sensei's mouth, which the rebreather under his chair adjusted to with an extra powerful burst of air.
Very well. I will be unable to use them effectively here in any case. The final embers of the torch will pass on. I know they will be in good hands.
Thank you, Sensei.
Izuku reached out a hand and placed it on the only bearskin available to him. All for One's scarred skull. Through this contact, Izuku dove into his sensei's mind. Sensei's metaphysical quirk space was as a vaulting catacomb, with neat coves for the taken quirks to be interred, and a central sarcophagus where All for One was once contained, now barren. Izuku spent what felt like hours scouring that charnel house for every last inkling of a quirk, dozens of strengthening quirks, reinforcement, and endurance quirks, and a handful of extrasensory quirks, including Ragdoll's search quirk. Just as Izuku was about to pull out of that now barren tomb, he caught the glint of one last ability. Hidden beneath the space that All for One once occupied, a diamond of a quirk buried in the rough within the abandoned coffin. When Izuku came back to himself, Sensei was slumped against his restraints, and Izuku was immortal. Izuku turned away from Sensei and positioned himself between the former supervillain and the glass walls as the force constructs blocking the hall fell. Guards and heroes in equal numbers piled in to stare at the pale, thin boy with a mop of green hair that had intruded on this maximum security prison. At the forefront of the gathered mob was one Togata Mirio, Lemillion, the inheritor of One for All. Izuku grunted as Lemillion stepped forward. I must have taken longer than I had anticipated if you had the time to come, Lemillion. In response, Mirio stepped through the glass wall as though it never existed. He was scowling, teeth bared in a snarl. Finally, you've shown yourself! All for One! And just like that, Izuku dropped into his villain persona. He put a hand to his chest and smirked at Mirio. Oh, please. All for One was my master. He leaned forward into a mock bow. I'm just a nobody. Lemillion wasted no time in taking the opportunity and seized Izuku by the collar, balling his fist in the shirt's chest fabric. I don't care what you call yourself. You've made a mistake coming here today. I prefer to call it a calculated risk. Nobody replied, the smirk growing cold and his eyes wild. After all, if you've been watching the security feeds, you know that I've just taken the last quirks held by my sensei. Izuku lazily reached a hand forward and waved it through Mirio's stomach. It might as well have been a hologram for all the resistance Izuku felt. At least you have the foresight not to let me touch you. A fist crashed into Izuku's cheek. His head snapped to one side, the smirk wiped off momentarily before it grew back, jagged and nasty. Nobody turned his head back to look Lemillion in the eyes. Did something not register? I said that I took the last of All for One's quirks, including the ones that let him survive a United States of smash to the chin and only be knocked unconscious. If All Might had done that to anyone else, he would have obliterated them, turned them into a fine red mist. And you, Lemillion, are no All Might. Not yet. I will stop you! I will bring you to justice! Maybe. Nobody's smirk evolved into a full grin. But not today. Maybe you'll have better luck once you've found the villain's alliance. And Mirio was grabbing air. Nobody had teleported right out of his grip. In the cell adjacent, an inmate began cackling at the exchange. He had seen firsthand the conviction and wily nature of Nobody. It had drawn him to the villain's alliance as soon as he had begun his killing spree so many years ago. Izuku Midoriya knew what a true hero was and recognized the rot in the system. And so Akagura Chizome, the hero killer Stain, heckled the heroes as they dispersed. Their era was coming to an end after all. The alert went up. News channels across the country broadcasted Izuku's picture, name, and alias within 10 minutes. In the course of a single night, Midoriya Izuku, Nobody, had become Japan's #1 most wanted villain. In the Midori shop's panic room, Midoriya Inko, under the guise of Midori Tenko, saw her son's face plastered on the most wanted villains page of the Hero Network, tears streaming down her face despite all that she had done to prepare for this eventuality. In the UA dorm's common room, Bakugo Katsuki railed at his phone, his classmates, at anyone within earshot that it was a lie, that the useless nerd could never do something like this, that it just wasn't fair. In his own dorm room, Hitoshi Shinso was fast asleep, tuckered out by a full day of training. And as he dreamed, the image he had of Midori Izuku became muddled, indistinct. Hidden in his hair, lice worked Izuku's obfuscation quirk into his mind. In a central Heroes Association headquarters, the faculty of UA memorized the details in Izuku's face and compared them to who they knew as Zuko. The resemblance was close enough to mistake at a glance, but ultimately too structurally different to conclusively call a disguise. In a staff boarding room, Midoriya Izuku's double slept soundly, unaware of the hubbub surrounding him over the airwaves. In an abandoned hotel in the poorest section of the city, an old television sputtered and fuzzed over the image of Midoriya Izuku. Its remote was crumbling to ash in the hands of a psychopath. Himiko Toga was fawning over the revealed villain while the rest of the members of the Villains Alliance were fortifying the building. The static image of Izuku was replaced by a three-dimensional version with a snap. Izuku had teleported in front of the screen.
You bastard!
Shigaraki Tomura screeched, lunging for Izuku, seeking to wrap his hands around the boy's neck. Instead, the green hair that Shigaraki so desperately wanted to watch turned to dust, ducked, and skipped aside, and his hands instead gripped the television set, which began to dissolve.
I'll kill you, you traitor!
Sure, Rocky, please. Izuku ran a hand through his hair, idly sidestepping the man-child's furious swipes and adopting the Shigaraki's annoying mission control persona. We talked about this, remember?
All I remember is you abandoning us!
Shigaraki's voice was coarse and scratchy, grating over Himiko's giggling. Ah, I see you conveniently forgot the plan, because you didn't like it and you didn't come up with it yourself.
Like hell I did!
Disintegrated patches of floor and wall were starting to threaten the structural integrity of the room. You know, Izuku sighed, putting his hands in his pockets as he skipped to the side to avoid a wild swipe by Tomura. I'm disappointed in you, Shigaraki. Sensei is too. That made Shigaraki stop in his tracks, eyes narrowed.
What?
How did you think I got myself caught by the heroes? I went to visit Sensei in jail.
Izuku shrugged.
You forced my hand, Shigaraki.
You better have a damn good explanation for this then.
Shigaraki huffed, throwing himself onto a dusty couch.
Well, if you may recall, after Sensei went to fight All Might, I had to quickly take over all of his business ventures.
Yeah, and you left us with nothing, you bastard!
The venom in Shigaraki's voice was present, but lacked its earlier fire.
Of course. I had to completely disassociate everything from Sensei's influence, or else they would be seized and used to track us all down. I've spent the last year fixing things up, putting the framework together, and it's all about to come crashing down because of Himiko.
Excuse me? Himiko put a hand to her collar, offended. I thought I did a great job dodging the heroes.
Maybe so, but you don't deny that you had to dodge the heroes.
Izuku cocked his head to the side and Himiko looked away.
They knew something was wrong when you visited me at UA.
You were at UA?
Shigaraki latched onto that.
So they did get you.
They suspected, but I think I'd thrown them off my case until Himiko showed up. The only reason I'm not being arrested right now is because I am here, and Midoriya Izuku is still asleep in his bed at UA.
You are so good with your clowns. Himiko grinned lasciviously, drooling.
But now everyone knows that both the Villains Alliance and the heroes are looking for the same person. And they know the district you're in. Once they find you, they're going to crack down on this place like a bolt from the heavens.
And you know all this because you've got your eyes and ears in your way.
Shigaraki cupped his chin.
Exactly. Now once the heroes find you, I'll have to step in. At that point, all pretenses will be gone. I will have to focus all of my resources on resolving this properly, leaving my alibis broken. So to maximize our time to prepare, stay low. Don't leave this place if you can help it. That last siege by the heroes will be the point of no return.
Ugh,
Shigaraki grimaced.
I hate stealth missions. At least we can do base building while we wait.
Ends of the heroes. It took some precise positioning and timing, but Izuku put his Zuko skin back on and swapped places with the double he had left on the bed. The only info you'll need is how close the heroes are getting to your base, and you can find that out easily enough on your own. Izuku took a step close to Shigaraki and put his hands on his shoulders.
I need you to trust me. Like the rest of the Alliance does. Like Kurogiri does. Like Sensei does.
Shigaraki's hands twitched, but stayed folded in front of himself.
It will all work out in the end. You'll see.
And the villains were left alone once more, unaware that Izuku had left their patron blind and dying in the hands of the heroes. It took some precise positioning and timing, but Izuku put his Zuko skin back on and swapped places with the double he had left on the bed. Exhausted, Izuku felt not into sleep, but his own quirk space. His mind palace took the shape of a bright cathedral hall extending to the horizon with stained glass windows, each depicting a different quirk in action that scattered a mosaic of color across the walls. He set about organizing and arranging the newest stained glass windows he had received earlier and installed them into blank spaces near similar quirks. Only the quirks in use appeared backlit, which were only a few at this junction, but the hall was not dark at all. The ceiling was one long window, always lit up and active, mixing color and shape pleasantly, and the entire length representing not all for one, as it had once been known, but give and take. Only once his new quirks had been catalogued did Izuku allow himself to sink into dreams. Izuku was thrown awake by his door being thrown open with a bang. He sat up, eyes bleary with sleep, still in his clothes from yesterday. Standing in the door was Bakugo, gripping the frame like he would wash away in a tide unless he kept hold. Ew. Bakugo stomped into the room, grabbing a chair from where it sat against the wall. He turned it around and sat in it backwards in front of the bed Izuku was sitting on. I need to talk to someone. Counseling, I guess. There are cameras? I don't give a crap. They would probably want to hear all this anyway because it's like evidence or something. Shouldn't you talk to one of the hero therapists then? Screw that shit. Those fuckers don't give a shit about my problems. They just want results, but you... Bakugo shot a finger forward and jabbed Izuku in the chest. You talk about problems, not symptoms. You get me. So I'm talking to you. Izuku sighed and swung his legs to hang over the side of the bed, and suddenly Midoriya Izuku was back to work. Okay, tell me all about it.